This question says Margot Forbes earns $9 per hour when she works a basic week of 40 hours. Part A. Calculate the amount of her basic pay. So in Part A, they want us to calculate the basic pay. Now, in order to calculate the basic pay, we need two things. We need the hourly rate, and we need the number of hours she normally works in a week. Now, before we go back to read the question, let's just write the formula. So the basic pay, remember, this is sometimes called wages or weekly pay. So you might not always see basic pay, but it's the same formula. The formula is going to be basic pay equals hourly rate multiplied by the number of hours worked for the week. I'm just going to write number of hours worked. So the formula is going to be basic pay equals hourly rate multiplied by the number of hours worked. Now let's read the question again to see if we can fill out this equation. So the question says Margot Forbes earns $9 per hour. So how much does she earn per hour? $9. So this is going to be her hourly rate. Therefore, for the hourly rate, we're just going to write $9. Multiplied, and we're going to be multiplying by the number of hours worked. Now it says she earns $9 per hour when she works a basic week of 40 hours. So how many hours does she work? She works 40 hours. Therefore, we're just going to multiply this by 40. Now when we set this up, we know we have a 1-digit number and a 2-digit number. Therefore, we can write the 2-digit number on top. So we can write this as 40 multiplied by 9. 9 times 0 is 0. 9 times 4 is 36. Therefore, our answer is going to be $360. Don't forget to add the money sign back in your answer. Now we're going to write our answer in the space provided. So the total amount of a basic pay for 1 week is going to be $360. Now let's do part B. It says overtime is paid at time and a half. How much does she earn for 1 hour of overtime? So in this question, they want us to calculate 1 hour of overtime. Now, it is very important that you know how to calculate overtime. But first, what is overtime? Well, overtime is going to be the extra hours she worked that is not a part of a regular work week. So we know Margot usually works 40 hours, right? Now, overtime is going to be the hours she worked outside of a regular work week. So these are going to be additional hours worked. We know Margot worked 40 hours every week. But if she worked overtime, that means she is going to work more than 40 hours. So this question wants us to calculate how much does she earn for 1 hour of overtime. In order to calculate how much she is going to earn for 1 hour of overtime, we must know the overtime formula. Now the overtime formula is going to be, I'm going to write it right here. I'm going to write the formula down here. So the overtime formula, I'm going to write OT for overtime equals overtime rate multiplied by her hourly rate multiplied by the number of hours she worked overtime. Now that we have this formula, we're just going to chug and plug. So to calculate the overtime, we need to find the overtime rate, and this is usually given to us in the problem. Now let's read it again. It says overtime is paid at time and a half. So this right here is going to be the overtime rate. our overtime rate is going to be time and a half. Now the way you're going to write this is you're going to write this as 1.5. So for the overtime rate, which is time and a half, we know we're going to write 1.5 multiplied by the hourly rate, and the hourly rate is what she normally makes an hour. And if we look at our question, we know the hourly rate is going to be $9 because it says Margot Forbes earns $9 per hour. So we're just going to write $9 multiplied by the number of overtime hours. So it's not the number of hours she worked in a regular work week. Because we're dealing with 1 hour of overtime, we know the number of overtime hours is going to be 1 hour. So we're just going to write 1 for the number of hours of overtime. Now let's simplify this. We have 1.5 multiplied by 9 multiplied by 1. We know any number multiplied by 1 is going to give us that number. Therefore, we're just going to multiply these two numbers. So we have 1.5 multiplied by $9. Because I have a one-digit number being multiplied by a decimal, I'm just going to use this trick. I'm going to say 1.5 multiplied by 9, which is $9. And we're just going to multiply this the way we normally do. 9 times 5 is 45. We're going to put the 5, carry the 4. We're going to bring down the decimal point. Now we have 9 times 1. That's going to give us 9. 9 plus 4 is going to give us 13. Therefore, our answer is going to be 13.5. And because we're dealing with money, we're going to add our money symbol back. And we know anytime we're dealing with money and we have cents, it's always going to have 2 decimal places. Because we only have 1 digit in the decimal place, we're going to have to add a 0. Therefore, our answer for the overtime rate for 1 hour is going to be $13.50. And just remember, we don't have to multiply by 1 because any number multiplied by 1 is going to give us that number. And by the way, this is just a trick. Anytime you have a decimal number being multiplied by a 1-digit whole number, you can always set the problem up like this. And because you're multiplying a decimal number by a whole number, all we had to do was set the problem up to look like this, and we added the decimal point back in our answer the same place it was in the decimal number. So remember, you don't have to convert a decimal number into a whole number in this situation. This is a trick that is going to save you a lot of time in the exam. Now, let's write this answer in the answer space. So for the 1 hour of overtime she works, she is going to earn $13.50. Now for part C, it says calculate Margot's total wage for the week if she worked 6 hours of overtime in addition to her basic hours. So they want us to calculate Margot's total wage for the week if she worked 6 hours of overtime. So she's working 6 hours of overtime in addition. So they want us to add in addition to her basic hours. So they want us to calculate this to her basic hours. What is the first thing you think we should do in this problem? Well, the first thing we should do is we should try to find how much she is going to make for the 6 hours of overtime she is going to work. And to find out how much 6 hours of overtime is going to be, all we're going to do is multiply the number of hours, which is 6, by the overtime hourly rate, which is what we found in part B, which is $13.50. So let's solve for this. Okay, so we have 6 hours of overtime. So we're going to say 6 multiplied by $13.50. Once again, we have a decimal being multiplied by a single digit whole number. Therefore, we're just going to use the trick again. So we're going to set this up to look like this. Because $13.50 has more digits, we're going to write that first. We can say $13. Well, we won't write the money sign, but $13.50 multiplied by 6. 6 times 0 is going to give us 0. 6 times 5 is going to give us 30. So we're going to write the 0, carry the 3. Now we see we have our decimal point, so we're just going to write that back in our answer. 6 times 3 is 18. 18 plus 3 is 21. We're going to write the 1 and carry the 2. Now we have 6 times 1, that's going to give us 6, plus 2 is going to give us 8. So if she worked 6 hours of overtime, she is going to receive a whopping $81. This is for 6 hours of overtime. Now we aren't done just yet. So they want us to find out the total wage for the week if she worked 6 hours of overtime in addition to her basic hours. Well, we found out her basic pay for that week in part A, and that was $360. So all we're going to do is add how much she earns when she worked 6 hours of overtime plus $360. So we can set this problem up to look like this. We can say total equals overtime plus basic pay. Now for the overtime, we know she's going to get $81 overtime if she works 6 hours. So we're going to write $81 plus her basic pay, which we know is going to be $360. Now we're going to set this problem up. We can say $360 plus $81. We're just going to add the cents part for the $360. So we're going to add a decimal point and 0 cents. Now when we solve for this, we know 0 plus 0 is 0. 0 plus 0 is 0 again. We're going to add our decimal point. 0 plus 1 is 1. 6 plus 8 is 14. We're going to write the 4, carry the 1, and 1 plus 3 is 4. We're just going to bring back down the money sign. Therefore, this is going to be our answer. So we can say the total amount she is going to make when she works 6 hours of overtime plus her basic pay is going to be $441. This will be our answer for part C. Now in the answer space provided, we're just going to write this answer. So we know she made $441.